This computer. Okay, I think we're good morning, and here we are. Good to be back with you guys. And today is July 8th, and we will go ahead and meet next week, the 15th. And so we'll, those 2 weeks, and then the following week, the 22nd. And I know that's 3 weeks out. I will be gone. Last week, while I was at BV, we got approval through Larimer County to host our camp up at Hermit Park. So it is a lot going on in my world right now, just in between these camps and putting them together. But anyway, we'll meet today and then next week. So Dick Schilling had contacted me about the idea of having a member spotlight, just because he was saying he doesn't know a lot of the people in our group. Of course, we had Brendan Smith join in a couple weeks ago. And so anyway, I said, well, yeah, would you like to take the microphone in, 5 minutes? And I was assuming he was going to be on today. But if he shows up, we'll just put that off till next week, and then we'll get opportunity. We'll try this out and get opportunity. If it's just us, the group here, we know each other, but we'll just kind of, why don't we just play that by ear? So see how that goes. Because it's been a couple weeks, I'd like to just review, and I'll go through very quickly these slides. We're looking at the first major discourse. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Yep.
This is a slide we've seen now. This is the third time. And so I'll move very quickly. We're in a first major discourse by Jesus in John's gospel account. This discourse is triggered by what I'm calling maximum rejection. It's the first time in the gospel account where it kind of pinnacles to a written description that the religious authority is now intent on killing Jesus. That's what that says in verse 5:18. The discourse has two major sections, verses 19 through 30, and this section revolves around the relationship between the Father and the Son. That's where we are right now. We're bringing that to a closure. We're almost there. And then once we get through that, we're going to be looking at this idea of witness, which I'm really excited about, because I'm really excited about diving into what that meant to the people of that day, a witness. So we've looked at, and the way I'm crafting this is I'm using not two methods, but two indicators within the text. And those indicators, the first one is the word for, F-O-R. And whenever the word for is in the text, it's like stating a reason. What predecesses that before is now saying, for this is the reason. So those are interpretive keys, and we're looking at, there are 6 of those in verses through verse 30, 19 through 30. And so again, quickly, we've got the number 1, the dynamic interplay within the relationship. The Son could do nothing without the Father, and the Father without the Son. There is a close union. Number 2 is the genetics, which is love. The relationship is driven by love between the Father and the Son. Number 3 is the effective power. We're talking about raising the dead here. This is the power of this relationship, is the ability to raise the dead. And then number 4, the authority structure within the relationship. It states that the Father does not judge, but has given all authority to judge to the Son. We've also looked at this use of the term truly, truly. It's 3 times in the text, and it means listen up. Verse 19, truly, truly, I say to you, the Son could do nothing of himself, And then in verse 24, we looked at last time, truly, truly, I say to you, he who hears my word. And then today we're going to be looking at truly, truly, I say to you, an hour is coming and now is. 19, 24, and 25, the use of this term. And we categorized each by a broad strokes idea that 19 is referring to the source of this, that this relational source, Father and Son, source of all things. And then the offering that we looked at last time. And then today is the idea of the realm of which where this offering takes place. So we got the source, you could say the source of the offering itself, and then the realm in which this offering will take place. So guys, this is just my attempt to try to bring some meaning to what Jesus is saying here in this text. So let's read the text, today's text, verses 25 through 27. Would somebody read that?
Truly, truly, I say to you, an hour is coming and is now here, when the dead will hear the voice of the Son of God, and those who hear will live. For as the Father has life in himself, so he has granted the Son also to have life in himself. And he has given him authority to execute judgment, because he is the Son of Man.
Okay, that is a theological mouthful there, Bob. One thing that would be really helpful is that the original audience, had a view of a framework of looking forward for something to happen. They were looking for something. That was a general feeling of the time. Now, what that something was and how it would occur, there's a lot of different views. But here is where Jesus is addressing the future and saying that the future is now come into the now. The future has invaded the now. So that's just a kind of an aside. Well, first of all, let's look at a 4, F-O-R, number 5, and that's number 5 of 6. We got one more, and here they are. I just put them back out. We've already seen this slide, but I'm thinking that the number 5, 4 is still talking about the authority structure, and to differentiate number 5, 4 from number 4, 4 is judgment versus source. Can you see the yellow circles?
Yes.
So the number 4, 4 is talking about this relational structure and has to do with the idea of delegated judgment. The number 5, 4 has to do with Jesus being a life source of raising the dead. So we've got judgment and source. And here, kind of extrapolated on that, verse 25 through 27, there's a clear coupling, a putting together of the Son in the text, the Son that Jesus directs himself as, or it's what he calls himself, the Son, as a life source of all and a judge of all. So these two ideas is what we're going to be looking at, judge and life source. Now, we got to preface by saying, guys, when we hear the word life, we've got image, because of our Christian upbringing and training and indoctrination and so forth, we've got images already preformed in our heads. And the same is true about judgment. When we hear the word judgment, we go, because of how we have been taught, we go, that's what that means. Now, and I'm not opposed to that, but what we are attempting to do in understanding this discourse and the whole book is, what did this mean? What did Jesus mean? And what did the original hearers mean? So that's what we're trying to do here. This is a statement, a restatement, 25 through 27. This is pretty important, of what Jesus said earlier in verses 21 through 25. Notice 21, for just as the Father raises the dead and gives them life, even so the Son also gives life to whom he wishes. So this is about life. For not even the Father judges anyone, but he has given all judgment to the Son. So here is the idea of judge. Moving on. We compare that to 26 and 27. Just as the Father has life in himself, it's almost a direct quote. Even so, he gave to the Son also to have life in himself. So here we are, life. And then in verse 27, again, and he gave him authority to execute judgment because, and then here's a key phrase, because he is the Son of Man. That's where we're headed with this. So here we have it, life, judge, life, judge. And I've just got a fancier in yellow to emphasize that. This coupled delegated role is then explained through the term Son of Man. Okay, he couples the two ideas, and then he says, because he is the Son of Man. Okay, that's he is telling them something. He's trying to communicate an idea to them, something new, something profound. And I say profound because in the next verse it says, do not marvel. And that's where we're going next time. So here we go, through the term Son of Man. So we got to look at this term Son of Man. And broad strokes, we've got Son of God, who has, Jesus has been referring to himself as Son of God, and others have been referring to himself as Son of God up to this point. And in the Son of God, what is true is there is life in himself and there is authority to execute judgment. So we take that, and then what he says is that all of this is this. And so we got to ask, what is he saying? What did this mean? What did he mean by this? And what did it mean to the audience of that time? So that's what we want to look at. And we're going to do that through comparing Son of Man to Son of God. The most common term Jesus uses when referring to himself is Son of Man. And that's throughout the Gospels. It's commonly held that this phrase refers to his fully human nature versus Son of God referring to his divine nature. We tend to think, the general public tends to think Son of Man is his humility and Son of God is his deity. And we want to take a closer look. The term Son of Man, let's first look at the next few slides are talking about Son of Man. That's what the major heading is. But then in order to understand Son of Man, let's look at Son of God first. So Son of God, the term, the technical term, well known to the Jewish people in the first century AD, and in the as early as the fifth century, even at the time of David, which would be around 1000 BC. This is a term that has been out there. And what this term means is the ruling king of Israel is called Son of God. The anointed one by God is Son of God. The expected one, the Hebrew term for Son of God is Messiah, and the Greek term is the Christ. So these are the main bullet points of Son of God. We could read about Son of God in 2 Samuel 7, which is God's interaction with King David and the promise for the kingdom to come. And then also in Psalm 2, which is the psalm of the Lord's anointed, which is the King of Israel. So these are all referring to Son of God. However, there were many ideas of how this would happen. We've got 2,000 years of theology that is informing our way of thinking. That was not true at this time. They had the idea that there would be one who would come to deliver at the close of the first century, somehow in the line of David, at least if you were from Judah. If you were a Samaritan, we've already looked at this, you would look at it that no, not so much in the line of David, but more in the likeness of Moses, a teacher. So there were different views of this, but there was one who was coming to make things right. That is the general feeling of the day. At least that's what the people of faith, the people of hope, that's what they were hoping for. Now let's look at Son of Man. Son of Man is a direct quote out of Daniel 7, 9 through 14. And this is, Daniel took place in about the 4th century BC, 400 years before Christ, documented at that time. The Son of Man through Daniel's, where did my pen go? Daniel 7, 9 through 14. This is, guys, a fascinating text to read and would have been very well known and stated during the close of the 1st century at the time of John's Gospel. And he is divine. He is divine. He is human. He's in human form. And he appears to be younger. The Son of Man appears in Daniel 7 at the throne of the Ancient of Days. And that's the setting. And he appears to be younger. He will be enthroned on high. He is given power, dominion, and sovereignty on the earth. So there is where the Son of Man is in the throne room of Almighty God and has been delegated an authority and a sovereignty over all the earth. That is much different than Son of God, who is an earthly king who has, as in the next slide, a unique relationship with God. All of this would have been in mind in John's, in John's mind and familiar to the audience near the close of the 1st century. But there were a lot of questions on what this all meant. So we got the two, and let's look at them, comparing Son of God with Son of Man. So on the left, Son of God, we've got an earthly ruling king with a unique relationship with God. That's the general idea. Son of Man, in contrast, is in God's presence, vested with authority to rule the earth. Two separate ideas, one of earthly origin, one of heavenly origin. Now, take it a bit further. Now I've got a couple of arrows, and what do those arrows mean? You've got an earthly origin Son of God, pointing to Son of God this way, heavenly relationship. And contrary to that, on the Son of Man, you've got a heavenly origin with an earthly relationship. So it goes this way. And then continuing, comparing further, here are the arrows again. You got the nature of the relationship over here, which is kingship. The Son of God is related to the king, the anointed king of Israel. And that is generally true. Kingship, Son of God. Over here, Son of Man is now defining, it is now bringing resolution to this kingship, the extent of his kingship here, which is all the earth. Compare continually, or continue. We've got Son of God. He is a righteous king's earthly rule, the anointed one, and it's undertoned by the idea of conquering the earthly rule of a king. Son of Man, we've got God Almighty bringing together heaven and earth, communion. And so this is where I land. This is where I land, is that in the binding of the two terms, in what Jesus is talking about here, the new information, and he's saying, no, these are not two separate ideas, but they come together in the person of the Christ, Jesus Christ, where conquering and communion come together. Now, that's easier for us to understand, but it would have been profound for them because they were trying to reconcile what appeared to be two separate entities. And Jesus is saying, you guys can't see my hands here. Well, maybe you can. Where the two are now coming together as the one. Conquering and communion come together. And correlating to what we see in the text of life and judgment. Life and judgment. It's a kingdom of life, and within that context, there is judgment that we will be reading about. So we're right on time. We got a good amount of time this morning. And guys, we have covered a lot of ground here. In today's session, we've looked at 5 major ideas, and they all find their center in Jesus, Son of God, Son of Man. The two, Son of God, Son of Man, coming together. And I've lifted 5 key terms in this. One is life, one is death, one is judgment, one is conquering, and one is communion. Guys, this is a mouthful. And so what I'd like us to do, we'll break up into breakup rooms. It's for about 20 minutes. And I'd like you guys to just kind of grapple with this and have some fun with it and think about what these 5 terms, how they correlate with each other, and then just talk about it in your group in relation to what Jesus is saying to the people. So describe to your group how you see the relationship between these 5 major ideas and how they correlate to Jesus as Son of God and Son of Man. So I'm going to randomly do a breakout room, and I'll join one, and then we'll be back here about 10 minutes to the hour. So have a great time. So here we go. I'm going to stop